How many times have you worked on a React project or a Next.js project and wondered there are so many files which you do not know about? So in this video, we are going to find out the significance of each and every files and folders in a Next.js 13 project. So this video is not for the ones who are looking to just learn the basics of Next.js or just want to create a Next.js project quickly. This is for the ones who want to understand Next.js in depth. So without wasting time, let's jump into the code editor. So you can see these folders and files. These were created when you created a Next.js project using create next app. Now if you see, there are few things which you might be aware of, like source folder, and there are, like, we added some code in the page.js file, but there are still these next folder, node module folder. And so let's start going through each of them one by one, and we will start from the main package.json file. I think most of you should be aware of package.json file, because this is not just used in Next.js file, it is used in most of the JavaScript projects as well. It has the project details like name, version, the script tags, the dependencies tag, all of these in the package.json file. So our node package manager npm references this package.json file to install all these dependencies, all these packages in the project. Like for this project, if you see, these are the dependencies, these are the npm packages which are already pre-configured by the create next app. So if you want to install any other package, you can go to the terminal and type npm install and that package name. So let's say if I want to install a package name abcd, I'll type npm install abcd, and what it will do is it will install this abcd package, as well as it will add an entry of abcd package here, and its version number as well. So this is the importance of package.json file. Apart from these dependencies, it has a script tag as well. These script tag are nothing but the commands which are used to build or start or lint your Next.js applications. So if you remember from the last video, I used a command called npm run dev. What it did was, it just, dev is this script name. What I did, I ran this basic command through npm run dev. So if you see, when I typed npm run dev here, what it actually did is, it is first fetching the project name, this project name, and then this is the version number which it is picking from this, and then again the script tag which I added. So this is fetching all these details from here, and now it is executing this next dev. How it is executing next dev? This is because the next dev is the value of dev property here in the script tag. So if you want to change it to something else, let's say if I change it to my name Shubhaw, then what I can do is I can just let's stop this project and then try to run again using npm run dev. If you see, it will throw an error that missing script dev, because now we have removed the dev script and added Shubhaw instead of that. So now if you want to run your project, you will have to do npm run and Shubhaw. Then it will execute the same command. Now it is saying, it is picking the name and version and the command from this package.json, and what it is actually executing is this command. So Shubhaw has this command. So if you want to build your application, or if you want to start the application, you have to type npm run start. So this is the significance of package.json file. Now let's see about another similar file called package-lock.json. This is actually a very similar file to package.json, but it is different in a way. If you see, almost all these things, name, versions, and all those things are same, but where it differs is in the terms of dependencies. For now, if you see, the package.json and package-lock.json's dependencies look same, but what you can do extra in package.json is you can specify the future versions as well. Like, you can give a caret symbol in front of the version numbers. So let's say a few months down the line, Next.js they decide to upgrade the version to 13.5.2, let's say hypothetically. Then in that case, this particular project will be eligible to get it updated to 13.5.2 if you do npm update. Once I run npm update, what it will do is it will try to fetch any version above than 13.4.4. Here it will be same, but if you go to package-lock.json, it will change to 13.5.2 because now the current version which is installed here will be 13.5.2. So that's how these package.json and package-lock.json differ from each other. If you are running this project in somewhere like on your local machine, and if you go somewhere else and you want to run this same project somewhere else, you check in this code on git, like you store this code on github and you clone this code on the other machine. At that point of time, let's say after 2 months, Next.js has already been upgraded, so it will be 13 point, say let's say 13.6.8. in that case, when once you run npm install there on that machine, it will not know for which version this project was actually configured. It was actually configured when you were running 13.4.4, but at that point of time it is 13.6.8 or something. Then it will install that because it doesn't know, right? So in those cases, package-lock.json comes in handy, because from there it will exactly know that okay, this is the version 13.4.4, this is the version for which this project was configured, and I should also install it, because let's say if I install it for 13.6.8 or so, there might be some changes in the code, and it will cause my solution to crash. So it's always better to use the same version for which this project was configured. And later on, if you decided to manually upgrade it, then it is your personal call, right? So but by mistake it shouldn't be upgraded to a different version. That's why package-lock.json comes in, and that's why the name also comes in, actually, the lock, package-lock, because it locks the version numbers of your current environment. Okay, so I think it's enough about package and package-lock.json. These are basically not only for Next.js files, Next.js projects. They will be for other projects as well, any React.js project or any JavaScript projects as well. Now let's move on to something else. This is eslintrc. Again, this eslintrc.json is not specific to Next.js. You should use eslint for all JavaScript projects. While configuring the project for the first time, there was a question that do you want to use eslint or not. So at that point of time we said yes, right? So that's why Next.js already created this .eslintrc.json file for you and added this line. So this line, what it does is, this next/core web vitals is a set of rules already configured for you. These rules are sometimes like checking there's no image tag, or like old image component, or a tag without href, or any image tag without alt attribute. All these rules are already predefined and they're in next core web vitals, and that is how they already use it. But if you want to refine any of your custom rules, then you can go ahead and add rules property, and then inside that you can configure the rules. And if you want to see the eslint in action, what you'll have to do is you'll have to run the eslint command, right? So npm run lint. So you go to command line and do npm run lint, and it will show is there any error or not. So right now there is no errors. Now if you go to your home page, and let's try to add one image tag. Okay, so let's wrap it up inside a div, and let's write image tag with source attribute as next.svg. This next.svg is already there here. Okay, so I'll just add this, and I'll try to save it. Now if you run npm run lint, it will show you warnings like image could result in slower LCP and higher bandwidth, so use image component here, and then it will show image elements must have alt prop. So slowly, if you just write alt tag and next image, let's say, and when you save it and when you run the eslint again, what it will throw? It will throw the single error. Earlier it has thrown these two errors, right? Now this error has gone because we have already added alt tag. Now you must be saying that every time for like it is very cumbersome that every time you do any code changes you have to go ahead and run npm run, like type npm run lint in the command prompt or the terminal. So there's another way. If you're using a VS Code editor, there is an extension called ESLint, I believe. Yeah, and if you install it, what it will do is it will start giving you errors at the runtime, errors or warning at the time you're like coding it as well. So here only you'll see this that image tag is like could result in slower LCP, consider using image. So let's say if we are using so this was the older error which we are getting. Now let's try to use the image tag from Next.js. So I think we will have to okay, so image tag is already imported here. So now if I do go ahead and add next.svg and close this tag, still it will throw an error. It is saying that image elements must have an alt prop. Now if we give the alt prop, now now you can see this error has gone. So this is very quick feedback, so you do not have to go and run npm run lint every time to see if your code is correct or not. So this is the good way to use eslint. So just install this eslint plugin from Microsoft and it will help you in coding in a big way. Okay, so now let's move on to the other file. Now let's see gitignore. I think most of you would be knowing about gitignore. This is just a file, as the name suggests. All those files, all the folders mentioned here will not be pushed to Git if you try to commit any changes and push it to Git. For example, here you say node modules, right? So if you go and see this is slightly grayed out, right? Because this folder, the content of this folder is not pushed to Git. Similarly, if you are creating any new file or project, like file or folder, and you do not want to push it to Git, you can just add that folder. Let's say you are adding a folder named Shubhaw, you can just add it here, and then if you create a folder, sorry, not in node modules, yeah, here you want to create a new folder called Shubhaw. So now if you see, this is again a little grayed out because this is again not going to be there on Git because you already added it. Now if you remove it, you see this is not grayed out anymore, because now if you make any changes to this Shubhaw folder, this will be pushed out to Git, the remote repo basically. So let's delete it, we do not need it. Okay, so done with gitignore. Now let's jump on to the folders before discussing all these other different files. Okay, so let's start with .next. This .next is a folder which is generated at the time of build. Every time you build your solution, this .next folder will be generated. This contains all the minified and compressed, all those optimized HTML JavaScript files, and you should not actually make any changes in these files. Like every time you make any change in your code, it will be and build the code, it will be regenerated. So you shouldn't be worried about .next folder, and that's why it is also not pushed onto your GitHub or any remote Git repo. Moving on to node modules. Node modules is the location where all the project dependencies are installed, or kept basically. So every time you run npm install, or every time you add any package.json, like any package in package.json, it will be stored here. So if you see eslint, this eslint is stored there. So all those files, all these packages, and in turn their dependencies. Let's say eslint is dependent on some other package as well. Let's say es abstract. So these will also be installed and kept here for your project to function properly. It will be generated every time you do npm install, so you do not need to push it over the GitHub or any remote repo. Okay. Now comes this public folder. Public folder basically is the place where you can keep all the static files, static assets of your files of your project, like svg files, image files, or video files, and these are optimized at the build time, and you can directly refer it using slash. So when we, if you remember, when we added this image tag, we can directly access it from using the base path, which is slash here. So that's why we can directly, we need not provide the path, like the relative path like slash this. It was not needed. We can just directly add the base path and write the file name. But again, this is an optional folder. You may or may not choose to have a public folder for your application. Now let's move to the source directory. If you remember, when we were configuring configuring this project, Next.js project, we had an option to either create src folder or not, and we chose yes. I actually prefer using src folder because this gives you a very well defined structure of the project. So any code which is going to be referred on your website or like rendered on your website goes inside your source folder, and everything outside these are all those configuration files and all. If you do not want to use the source folders, you are free to move away with that. You can just leave the source folder and you can just create a folder outside the source folder, and it should work properly. Now the most important thing, app folder. This app folder is new in Next.js 13, and this is where everything reside. All those web pages, which pages of your website reside inside the app folder. So app folder, so basically this is the one which is responsible for all the routes and everything of your application. If you remember, in the last video I told you that page.js is the home page of your application, but I didn't tell you why. Okay, so in this video let's try to quickly see basics of routing, and then we will move ahead. So this page.js is a special file. Every time you create a page.js file inside a folder, it will serve as the route for that folder name. So since this is home page, this is app is home directory, and its page.js is inside it. That's why it is considered as the home page of this application. Now if you, so let's say you want to create another route like your website / about. Right now it says 404, this page cannot be found. Now if you want to create this route, how will you do that? You have to create a folder called about, and then create a file called page.js inside it, and write a default function. The function name can be anything because it's a default function. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just returning basic paragraph tag. And now if you refresh this, you can see at about page, now about route, it is saying this is the about page. So that's how you create a route. Similarly, if you want to create any other page, any other route, you just go ahead and just inside the app folder you create, let's say I want to create now a blogs folder, right? And inside that I'll define a js file, page.js file. Now I create export default function blogs page, return this is the blogs page. Now if you go to this blogs route, it will show this is the blogs page. So that's how we are going to create the basic routes. Now you might be required to create nested routes, like for example, if you want to have a contact me page inside the about section, right? So inside the about page, if you want to create a contact me, let's say contact, this, if you type this, you'll not be it will again throw the same error, that page not found. So for that again we have to follow the same structure. We have to create a folder called contact inside this about folder, and then a page.js file. So I am creating the contact folder, and inside this page.js file. So and then again export default function contact me return a div called contact me. Okay, so now if you refresh, you'll see once you click on about, and if you go to about/contact, it will render contact me. So this is a very basic of routing. Of course there's lot more to routing, but this video is already become so lengthy. Let's not discuss everything about routing in this page. I'll try to create another video for specifically to discuss specifically about the routing section. Now there is another file called layout.js. Okay, so layout.js, as name suggests, is the layout of your website. So any layout.js file which is inside the app folder is called root layout. Okay, and this is a mandatory file. You have to define your HTML and body tags inside it, and it accepts a children prop. This children is used to populate all the pages of that particular layout segment. So since this is a root layout, everything, if you see this children here, so every page.js file inside this or inside the subfolder of this will be populated inside here. So root layout is defining here your HTML tag and body tag. And let's say if you want to define another header section here. Okay, and I'm just doing some basic thing like giving the logo. So I will just add basic link to about section. So about, and we have created another thing called blogs, right? So let me just write blogs, and right after this I'll create a main component, and this in here I'll paste children. Okay, so this is how I just for the sake of it I change the root layout. Now what will happen is every page of your website will have this header section, and this children will be the route segment which we will be populating. So right now you are at the about/contact. Let's go to the home page first. You see the content of your website is there, but here this is the header section, logo, and then these are the two links. Let me just give a very basic styling. You do not need to understand this, we will discuss everything later. And so you see this is the logo, this is the about link, and this is the blogs link. So when I click on about, this section still stays the same, and this is the about page, this goes to the about route. Okay, and when I click to blogs, this goes to the blogs page, but this still remains the same. And now again if you want to go to the home page, this will go back to home page. So what I was trying to make you understand is this layout file is responsible for the entire layout, and using the children prop, the routes are injected. Now layout.js, we understood root layout, but let's say I want to have a common layout for the about section as well. Apart from this layout, I want to add some extra things for all the about sections here. So again I can create a layout.js file inside that folder. This can again be a very simple component. I will just write layout, or for better naming convention, write about layout. This component here, you do not, okay, I forgot to add function here, function, and this component will accept a children prop. Okay, so children prop will be there, and inside it I can define a let's say heading for about section. Okay, so let's say about, and let's give this a class of, let's say, text 3xl, text center again. And now inside the paragraph section, or let's say inside a div, I define this children prop. So can you guess what will happen now? When you go to your about section, what will happen is about is created. This about, this is the h2 element which is there now, and this is the about page. Okay, similarly if you go to about slash contact, it will still show about here and then contact me here. But if you go to contact page.js, you'll only find this contact me. But since I added a layout, so this common layout will be injected, and all the pages, these routes are injected through children prop inside the layout. Okay, so in this project structure I have created a basic layout, the root layout. In the root layout we will have these navigation links, the logo and these about and blocks navigation link. And then inside about I have again created a heading section about. Okay, so everything in this, it will remain like this. But if you go to blocks, you will not see any about. Okay, but you will still see the navigation bar because this was put in the root layout of your component. So we understood about basics of layout and routing as well. Now let's move on to the leftover files. So I have already discussed eslintrc, gitignore, package-lock, package.json. Now comes in jsconfig.json. jsconfig.json is again not specific to a Next.js project file, but this is basically there to assist a code editor like VS Code or some other code editors. So every time jsconfig.json is present, the code editor would understand, okay, this is the root folder of a project. So jsconfig should be there in the root folder itself, and then Next.js uses it to configure the absolute imports of your project files. What I mean by absolute imports is, if you go to src and if you try to, let's say, let me create a new folder called components. Here I will try to keep all the components which I am going to use inside any web page. Okay, so let's say I am creating a custom button component. Okay, in the custom button component there is nothing but a default custom button function which returns a button which says my button. Okay, and now if we want to put it inside our home page, let's first format it. Let's delete this. I will put my custom button. And for importing, generally how we import is we go and type import from, and then we go one folder up. This is here, we reached app folder, and then we reach to components, and then we select custom button, and this should render it perfectly, and this should not create any issues. This rendered my button component perfectly. If you see, we had to write this long path. Here it is still better. If you go inside your nested components like in contact, okay, in here if you want to use your custom button component, how will you use this custom button component? If you are going to use it, you will have to write let's just copy this, paste it here, and you will have to go 2 folders up, and then you will see this, right? But instead of this much of nesting, what you can do is this absolute import does what absolute import does is you can just directly go ahead and type components and custom button. So this negates the uncertainty or chances of causing errors while importing any file in a nested pages. So if you see what Next did, it added at the rate and slash anything inside source will be can be imported as at the rate slash star. Okay, so custom components, so it was since it's inside components folder of the src folder, it was referenced as a at the rate components. Okay, so this is the use of absolute imports, and this is configured inside jsconfig.json file. So we are done with this. Now let's discuss about tailwind.config.js. This is for all the tailwind css configurations. And Next.js provides some basic configurations for you already, but if you want to modify this, you can add all your extra configurations as well. So this content is basically what Next.js did was they added the path of all those files, all those js, ts, jsx possible files where we can use the tailwind css classes, like when we used in the page these classes, right? Through this content property, it will understand that okay, these files are using the tailwind classes, and then accordingly it passes all these classes to the corresponding css. Okay, similarly you can extend the theme as well. Like right now background will have some gradients, but you can add some other style classes as well as your animations as well, you can add in the tailwind config.js. Okay, moving on to this postcss.config. PostCSS is nothing but a set of plugins which, when configured, can provide certain functionalities like linting, minifying, and transformations. So Next.js already has some predefined configurations set for PostCSS, but if you want to modify it, you can do it. But be aware that if you want to modify it, it will override all those default configurations as well, I believe, and so you'll have to write all those default configuration as well. So I would advise you not to mess with this file, just leave it as it is. Even the Next.js documentation suggests the same, so just leave it as it is. So now let's move on to the last file, next.config.js. Here, as the name suggests, it is the configuration file for your Next.js project. You can configure a lot of things here. Obviously, explaining all those configuration options in this video won't be possible. So I'll just touch upon few important ones, or you can say most used ones. Okay, first one is basePath. What you can do is you can configure a base path for your application. So let's say if you're deploying your website on a subpath of a domain, okay, and this is a blogging website, so you can just write the base path as /blogs. If you go to this website, it should say this 404 error not found. Now if you go to /written blogs, right, now it will host this the entire website here on the blogs page. If you see on the blogs page, it is there. Now if you click on about, it will go to blog/about. Similarly, if you go to blogs, it will go to blog/blog, because now this has become your home page. So this is the base path which you have configured. So every link and everything will start from /blog/anything else. Okay, so next option you can think of is a headers config option, where you can define the headers for a particular segment of path as well. So if you see, headers allow you to set custom HTTP headers on the response to an incoming request on a given path. How do you define that? You get a async function called headers. Inside that you have to return an array of objects which will contain the object will contain source as the path, and then headers for that, and you can have key value pairs in the headers. And these header options can be like these, like you can add the xdns prefetch control option, or you can add this strict transport security options. Similarly, for permissions policy, you can you'd have seen the website can have the camera or microphone or geolocation and all those policies, right? So you can configure all these policies from here. And how you will define is, you will define it in the key value pair section here, okay, inside the header property. So now after header, we can see the images config option as well. So images option is useful when you are doing some image optimization for your project. Next.js already provides you image optimization, built-in image optimization, but if you choose on to use some other third-party providers like Akamai, Cloudinary, or all those things, you can use those configurations as well. And for that you just need to write images inside this. I mean, if you go to this next config, instead of here you can just write images, and again this will open a object where you need to define a property called loader, which is a custom loader. And then in this then you have to provide the location for the loader file. So this loader file will basically be a .js file which will export a default function which always returns a string. Okay, so you can go and check these Akamai and Cloudinary loader files. You can get these loader files from their documentation as well, but just for the example I am showing, you just have to create a loader.js file somewhere in your project, add this function, and then add the location of that loader file to this. Now after this I wanted to cover quickly just two things, two properties which are actually very useful, and then we will wrap it up. So the first one is redirects. Okay, so when you do redirects, what you do is you create a async redirect function which basically returns a array of objects. In this object you define a source, like let's say when somebody lands on your home page, let's say, like there's no for now there's no home page, like home path, right? But if you want to read, let's say somebody types, let's say we go to shubhaw.com, and shubhaw.com doesn't have a home path, right? So if somebody clicks on shubhaw.com/home, somebody types that, it will show error. Similarly for our application, if somebody goes to home page, it will say this page could not be found. So in that case what we will do is we will define the destination. So redirection destination, that if somebody goes to the home path of our website, we will redirect them to this slash location. Now we need to provide this permanent or not. So let's say permanent as true, and when we save it, now when we restart our application, let's say this is restarted, yeah. Okay, so now when we go to the home page of our application, see, it redirects back to our actual home, okay, which was slash. Okay, so this is the use of redirects. Similarly, there is a function called rewrite. Instead of redirect, we rewrite the URL to this. So let's say if somebody now this doesn't require a permanent or temporary rewrite. So now if I go to the home segment of our website, what it would do is, so it would still stay on the same page, but it is now going to the home. Actually it is going to this path. The URL still stays the same. The difference between the redirect and rewrite is this, that in the redirect it will remove this home and it will become like this, but in rewrite it will stay like it will stay on home, but actually there is no particular route which we have created in our project like home. So ideally if we do not have a home rewrite or redirect, then what we would have to do is you would have to create another folder called home, and inside that home you would have to write a page.js file. But right now it is not there, but it is still working because of the configurations we did in the next.config.js file. This is it. I know this is a very long video, but I really wanted to go in depth about each and every file of the next project, and I hope this will give you some understanding about what purpose each of these files serve. And I hope you can do some configuration, some customization of your next project after this video. And obviously again, the configuration options are so rich that you can do a lot of configurations, not just Next.js configurations. You can have Tailwind configurations. You can install multiple packages and use different libraries and all those things. So as and when needed, it will come handy to you. So this was my purpose. Again, this was not a video for someone who didn't want to go much in depth of Next. If you just wanted to understand the basics of Next, you could have skipped this video. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for sticking till the end. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye.